So, what do you think these are going to make? Stay tuned. Good morning, everybody. It's Stephen here for Bland Designs, and this is my weekly vlog for Monday, February the 24th, 2020, vlog number 156. And behind me, you can see what I teased you about in the opening of today's vlog. This is called the Giant Dahlia. Giant Dahlia. I have a hard time saying that word. What is it? It's a tablecloth. It is a quilted tablecloth. Now, it hasn't been quilted yet. I just finished it yesterday in my class. It was my last class for this, and I still have to do some top stitching all the way around it, and I need to do the quilting on it, and then it'll be done. But as you can see, this was definitely outside of my box. There's little points there. They're probably hard to see on the video because right now it's not laying flat. It's hanging up. But yeah, I learned how to do some curves in this, although I've done curves before. And I learned how to do Y-seams as well. So is this a project I would do again? Probably not. Why is that? I found it tedious. I like quilting. This is beyond quilting. I'm glad I did the class. The instructor was excellent. I learned a lot, as I said. But I don't really see myself making another one of these in the near future. And not just because it was a bit tedious, but also because, well, I don't really have any need for something like this. Now, some people were making it into a Christmas tree skirt, which is very doable. And you can actually develop it into a full-size quilt as well. But I don't know. For me, I'm glad I took the class. It's a one-off. So that was this week's project. So let's move right ahead into YouTube channel of the week. And this is another person who does quilting. This week's YouTube channel is another one that's related to quilting and sewing and to some unique fabric art kind of techniques. It's called Lisa Capen Quilts, and she has a variety of videos that look at doing quilting and doing art quilts especially. She has a lot of interesting techniques, and many of these techniques, I think, are transferable to paper crafts as well as fiber arts. So if you're looking for some inspiration or things that you can do that are a little bit different, a little bit unique, then tune in to Lisa Capen Quilts. And the links for that YouTube channel are in the show notes below, as is the link, of course, to Stephen and Walter Live. We had a very good discussion this week about what makes a hero. So if you didn't catch us live, you can catch the rebroadcast. And we need a topic for next week. And we are going to do an art attack, but not next week. We probably won't do that until the middle of March because we have some other things between now and then that interfere with us doing something like that. And we're thinking about getting out the jelly plates and doing some tags, art tags. I call it fun with tags, and those of you that watch The Big Bang Theory know my reference there. So that'll be in a few weeks' time. So if you've never tuned into Stephen Walter Live, come join us. We're usually on at 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, except this coming week. And I might as well talk about that now. I was going to save it near the end, but I'll talk about that now. We will be on 1 hour later this coming Sunday. We'll be on at 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time because it is the first of the month, and that's when I teach my art journaling class, and so I don't get home until about 4 o'clock. So I needed a little time to get things set up. So it will be at 5 this coming Sunday. That would be March the 1st, 2020, at 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I also have links to the book of the week and to the iCraft Photobox Album Kit tutorial. And today I'm going to show you the last installment to that when we get to that section of the vlog. But I have put all three segments together as their own independent video, and you'll find those in the playlist called iCraft Kits. And that's the last of the iCraft kit, so we'll have to start working on something else. So moving right along, let's talk about what's pissing me off this week. Okay, earlier this week I went off to my guild's executive meeting. I am the secretary of the guild. I'm the only man in the guild too, amongst 100 ladies. Scary, can be. But something came up, and this is not a criticism of the guild or the people who brought this topic up, but this is something I've discovered in the years that I have been part of various organizations and in positions where, you know, on those organizations we have to make certain decisions about the organization. And there are a lot of little people involved in organizations, especially volunteer organizations. And what I mean by little people are people who nitpick about the most minute details, things that are not going to, you know, change the price of rice in China, things that don't need to have a mountain made out of a molehill, things like that. I'll give you an example. Our guild a few months ago did its quilt show. It's a major fundraiser for the guild. They only do one every 3 years, and this is the money that's made at that, basically along with membership fees, sustains us for the next 3 years. It's a big undertaking. It takes a lot of people. It takes a lot of organization, a lot of time, a lot of effort on many people's part to make it successful. And our quilt show was very successful. So the convener of the quilt show was giving her report, a very good report, excellently done, very detailed, with recommendations for how we can improve the next time that the guild does a quilt show. And that'll go on to the next person who becomes the convener. So, you know, somebody coming into this for the first time, I think will find this report very valuable. But in part of that report was the financial statement. Basically, how much we spent, how much we made. What was the bottom line? As I said, these are the funds that we need to sustain the guild for the next few years. So she gave that report. It's not a complicated report. Money goes out, money comes in. After all expenses are paid, this is what we made, the net. Fine. A couple of individuals, though, started to nitpick at that. And what they were nitpicking at was how it was going to be presented to the guild members at large at our monthly meetings of all the members. Well, the convener of the guild is simply going to get up in front of everybody at the meeting and basically deliver her report. Fine. Well, they thought that there should be the financial stuff should be put in the newsletter in advance of the meeting where the convener would report. And their reasonings being is we want to show complete transparency, blah, 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 blah. Okay, I get the transparency part. It's not, though, rocket science, and it's not a big secret. In fact, a majority of the guild were involved in putting this together. So they already have an idea. So the argument went, they thought it should be put in the newsletter. Other individuals thought, no, it would be better if it was presented at the meeting first before, you know, anything was leaked out. Now, here's the reason they didn't want anything leaked out. And that's my terminology, not theirs, okay? It's not really a leak. Is that it gives people fodder to come up with criticism. And they will. And these are the little people. Okay, the little people are those who really weren't that involved with what was going on with the quilt show. These are the little people who sit at the back at meetings, talk through it over top of guest speakers, over people who are giving presentations, and then ask a whole lot of, quite frankly, stupid questions. Questions that nobody really cares about. They do not, you know, make a significant difference to the way things are run. They're just people who feel that they are that important that they need to criticize something. And one of those always revolves around financial statements of any organization, which I don't get. Okay? You join an organization, it's a volunteer kind of thing. you have to come in with the idea that everybody is working to the best interests of the guild, or of the organization for that matter. Nobody's trying to money launder. Nobody's trying to be corrupt. No one's trying to embezzle. For God's sakes, it's just a guild, a quilting guild. But there's always these people that have to nitpick at everything. Now, this does several things when people do that. One, it makes your meeting go on forever. Okay, and a good example of that was our last executive meeting. We were flying through the items that were there. And you know, nobody likes meetings. Let's face it, they're boring. If you like meetings, you're weird. The other thing too is that everything was going along fine, and then they bring this up and they had a discussion for about half an hour that went in circles. Just went in circles. The initial question was answered, but the person wasn't getting it. It just went around and around and around. Finally, I sat there, and I say very little at these executive meetings because I'm outnumbered. I'm one man with about 10 or 12 women, okay? Think about it, okay? You know what I mean, okay? It's best that I don't open my mouth, because when I do open my mouth, I usually get shot down, okay? The reason I get shot down is really simple. It's because I'm a man. It is a sexist group that I belong to, and I've had this discussion before about it. I mean, for the most part, the members of the guild are lovely people. There's a few crackpots, but then in every organization there's a few crackpots. You know, that's just the way things work, okay? And you learn to deal with that. But I find that for some reason, and it's because I'm a man, okay? I know it's that. It's like, oh God, here's the man. He's trying to take over from us. No, I'm not. I'm quite aware of the fact that I'm a man in a woman's world, okay? I'm a quilter. And there's lots of men quilters out there, but I just happen to be the only man quilter in this particular guild. So I sit there quietly, but I listened to this for half an hour going around and around and around. Finally, I did say something. I basically said what I just said to you. We're making a mountain out of a molehill. What does it really matter? We have somebody that's very competent, has written a very good report. She's going to deliver that report, and then we can deal with the questions at that point. Simple as that. We don't need to put fuel on the fire as if there was a fire. There's no fire here. Everything's very straightforward. It's very up and up legit. But if you allow people time to, think about everything, they will come up with reasons to criticize, and we'll be there till the cows come home at the next meeting, and we don't need that. So anyways, that kind of, ended the discussion, and we moved on. But going back to the main meeting, when the guild is all together, there will be those that will have criticisms, and really all they're criticizing, all they want is to be heard, and for some reason it feeds into their ego. And these are the little people who need to feel important. Okay, you want to feel important? Then why don't you get involved? Why don't you put your money where your mouth is, get in there and do some work? Because 9 times out of 10, the people with the most criticisms are the people who did the least amount. And that's what pisses me off. You just want to stand up, walk over to that person and slap their face. Again, I have a wicked imagination. I can see the whole scenario. I walk up, I go over, sit down, enough of you. Not that that ever is going to happen because, there's laws against assault, things like that. But in my imagination, there is no law. So anyways, that's what pisses me off. These little people waste my time and other people's time. They do not contribute to the overall good of the organization, and they just want to have a voice in order to feed their own ego. They are not helping out here. So I am sure Most people have come into contact with this kind of thing. If you've ever been involved in an organization, whether it's a corporation, whether it's a volunteer organization, whether there's hundreds of people involved or whether there's only 4, it's always the same. There's always at least one person in the group who's the crackpot. And that's what I call them, crackpots. Okay, moving on. So, speaking of crackpots, how about this week's home DIY? This week's home decor idea comes from the bathroom. Again, the bathroom is sometimes the room in your house that has the least amount of decoration. And especially if it's a guest bathroom, you want to have a favorable impression when your guests use it. So why not give them that hotel feel by folding over your bathroom tissue into a triangle? Looks just like a hotel room. It suggests to your guests that this has not been used by anybody else, and it's just fun to fold bathroom tissue. So if you're looking to give your bathroom that professional hotel-like luxurious touch, why not spend half a day folding all of your toilet paper rolls with little triangle points? Which begs the question, do you put the roll on top or at the bottom? And that takes us to product review, and nothing really that much new except that I have a whole ton of fabric that I purchased, like about $400 worth. I went a little hog wild. My local quilting store, Ultimate Sewing, you've heard me talk many times about them before. They're getting all kinds of new bolts of fabric in, I think like over 400, and they need some space. So they decided to have an end of the bolt sale, meaning that usually their fabrics cost about $15 a meter, which is a very good price, very good price. But if you bought whatever was left on a bolt, you got it for $11 and some odd cents a meter, which is even better. So I thought I'd do a little shopping, and yes, I did a lot of shopping. So I got to show you what I bought. It may not be that exciting to you, but I like it. So I saw this. I think there's about 3 meters on here, so that's a fair amount, but I kind of liked it. I thought it was very modern looking, possibly a little dark, but then I wouldn't use the whole thing in this. This would be pieces in a quilt, of course. So that's kind of neat. Now this line I have used in some recent projects, and I do love it. It's just, so I thought, hey, I'd take advantage of this and buy some more of it. And there's some other companion pieces that go with this. For example, this, very nice. You can see I've got quite a bit of fabric here, okay? And this. And I saw this. This was actually, I think this is only about a meter of this, but I thought, it's kind of interesting. It would be great as background fabric. And then, of course, you know my love of Tim Holtz in the crafting world. Well, Tim Holtz has, for many years, maybe a lot of people don't know this, but he does have a crossover into the world of sewing, quilting, and that kind of thing with fabrics he's designed. So I have made a quilt, and you've seen it, the quilt that I made for my friend. And I showed that a few weeks ago. And I made it all out of Tim Holtz fabrics. Well, they had a couple of Tim Holtz fabrics still sitting there. I think these are about 3 meter pieces as well. So I picked those up as well because, you know, I love Tim Holtz. So yeah, I've got a lot of fabric. Now here's the question I often get when I buy fabric like this. So what are you going to make with it? I have no idea. I don't buy fabric specifically for a project in mind. Well, sometimes I do, but I'm a sucker for fabric. I just love the colors and the designs, so I spend money on it. This goes back to a habit I had, and I think I've mentioned this in a past vlog, habit I had when I first got into scrapbooking. I loved scrapbook paper. I still do. So I would see new products coming out, new designs coming out in scrapbook paper, and I buy it. And that's why to this day I have a mountain of scrapbook paper and scrapbook paper booklets as well. which I'm trying to use up as I work on projects like the iCraft kits and things like that. I'll never get through it all. I've already donated in the last great purge of my craft room. I donated quite a bit to a local elementary school, like boxes and boxes. That's how much I had. And I still have enough to do it again. And I probably will down the road. I do need to have another major purge of my craft room, and I need to be brutal. And you know, if it doesn't bring me joy, what's that Maria, what's her name? Maria Conde, whatever. You know who I mean. She's all the rage. If it doesn't bring you joy, get rid of it. And that's all part of my overall plan eventually to change my whole craft room around, update it, basically strip it to the walls and start from the ground up, and it will become craft room / sewing room, and more sewing room than craft room, I think. But that's going to take some time and some money, quite a bit of money actually, for it. So that's not going to happen tomorrow. And I just have to be brutal. And how did I get on this conversation from fabric to scrapbook paper to redoing my craft room? I don't know, but I did. So anyways, I love fabric, and that's why I get it. And it will not go to waste, believe me. But in the last week at Ultimate Sewing, I have spent about $600 on fabric and other supplies as well. So do I have a problem? I might. Maybe I need to start selling quilts. The problem is when you sell quilts, nobody gives you what they're really worth. Oh yeah, that's an interesting thing too. Just if I go back to what I was pissed off at, another thing that pissed me off at that meeting was we have quilts. This wasn't part of my outline here for today, but anyways, I'm just going to talk. Surprise. We donate quilts to various groups for fundraisers for other groups. These are quilts made by quilt members or guild members who have donated them to the guild, and essentially an organization could come to us and apply to get one of our quilts. And it doesn't cost them anything. We give it to them if it's for a worthy cause, and they can, raffle it off or do a silent auction. Well, we have a group that's wanted one of our quilts, asked for it, and for a silent auction. Well, the lady who's the convener of this, and I understand where she's coming from with this. She wanted to set a minimum bid as a requirement for getting this quilt. In other words, if they're putting it in a silent auction, you can put on items in a silent auction, say minimum bid is a couple of $100, depending on the overall value of the thing. You don't want somebody getting a $200 piece of art for $25. However, that's the whole point of a silent auction. It's to start the bidding at a reasonable level, and then it goes up from there. You hope it goes up from there, and it exceeds the cost of the item, and you make profit on it. That's the extra money is yours for the the fundraiser. So she thought we should tell the organization that they had to have a minimum bid of $100, because she says there's at least $100 worth of materials in this quilt. And yes, she's right. There is at least. This one behind me, for example, this is not a cheap project. That probably cost me $300 in materials and what I paid for the class. Yeah, it mounts up really quick. Okay, and that's not considering the time it takes the quilter, the person who's made it, that put into it. I mean, you never get enough money to cover that. But this person was insistent it should be at $100. Well, a couple of other people thought that was too high. They thought maybe just 75. Now, you're going to say, well, 75, 100, it's only $25 difference. It's psychological. I've been to many silent auctions, and if I see a minimum bid that's in the 3 digits, I'm suddenly not, depending on how much wine I've had at the time, if it's one of those kind of auctions, I hesitate to put a bid on it because already I'm over into hundreds of dollars. If I see 2 digits as the minimum, like 25 or 50, then I might say, okay, I bid 55 on it, and someone else will come along and go 60, you know, that kind of thing. And it'll eventually probably will get over into the 3 digits. But to see it initially, psychologically, it does something to you. So this is what was explained. I explained that to this person. Long and short of it was that as the executive, we decided the minimum bid should only be $75, not $100. I don't think the convener was happy about that, but she was coming from the point of view that, you know, it's someone made this, it took time, it took effort, it took materials and the whole bit. It's, you know, let's not undervalue it. Problem is with a quilt, you never get the value of the quilt, because non-quilters are probably people who are going to this silent auction. They won't understand the value of a quilt just because they don't, okay? And a lot of times people think that something that's handmade, okay, they should get cheaper. Well, no, actually it should be the reverse. But most people will not pay what a quilt is worth. If I was to sell this one behind me after it's done and quilted, how much would I want for it? I would want a minimum of $500 for it. And you're probably going, if you're a non-quilter, you gotta be kidding. That's ridiculous. It's not ridiculous, but there's my time, there's my effort, there's my material in it. I've already told you this cost me about $300 to make, just in materials and the class fees alone. So actually, it's cheap at $500. But that's not how non-quilters, that's not how they would see it. So essentially, quilters don't sell their quilts, and that's why. Because they might as well give them away, and they do, because they're never going to get the true value of a quilt. Simple as that. So that's what this, you know, lady is coming from that wanted $100 as the minimum bid. We set it at $75. There's even some discussion as to whether or not we are in a position where we can actually put that demand upon the organization we're giving it to. Sort of like being, you know, give something that's great, we're giving it to you, but there's restrictions. I don't know. Anyways, yeah, that's one of the things the Guild does, is they will give quilts to organizations, charity organizations, that are trying to do fundraising. Okay, I don't know how I got on that discussion, but I did. I'm kind of all over the place this morning. All right, let's move our attention to Book of the Week. Now, it's not about quilting, it's about scrapbooking. And this is called Scrapbooking Your Family History. Now, I used to do genealogy. I dropped that. I got hit too many brick walls and I just lost my interest in that. Seems to happen with me, squirrel. But this was a book I got because I was looking for a way to put my research into a visual format that other people who are not into genealogy would actually want to look at. Because, you know, genealogy is a lot of text. When you're researching your family history, it ends up, if you write a book about it or whatever, it can be very boring for people who don't have the same interest that you do in your family history. So pictures and other ways of laying out something that on other ways might seem very dry is a great idea. So this is a great book for this. And this is actually written by somebody who's not only a scrapbooker, but is a genealogist. She's fairly famous in the genealogy world. Her name is Maureen Taylor. I have several of her books, and this one is one of my collection, and it's excellent, very excellent. Now, here's the irony of the whole thing. I got this, I started putting my stuff together in a visual format, never got beyond 1 or 2 pages. Yeah, squirrel. Cost. This book cost me Canadian $38.99, so it's not a cheap book. I looked it up, as I always do. Amazon.ca has it for $39.90, so it's even more expensive. However, the good news is there were several sites linked to Amazon where you could get this book used. And I saw one price at $6.01. Now, I have no idea what the shipping would be on that. But again, and I've said this many, many times, check out the used book section of Amazon, because you can get some good deals, and I have done this many times, and the books are pristine. They are just like this. They're not marked up, they're not destroyed, and you know, in the case of this book, $6 as opposed to $39. Wow. Even if you had to pay $10 for shipping on it, still, cost is less than half the original cost of it. So, you know, if you're interested, I've got a link to that for Amazon in my show notes below. Okay, so works in progress. All right, so now we're going to go to the final segment on the iCraft Photobox album, and this is the final embellishment. Okay, so I've done my final embellishing, and when I first started this album, I had other ideas of what I was going to do with it. I was basically going to keep to the theme of the paper pack I used for the backgrounds. But then I got thinking, well, since this is supposed to be a photo box album, maybe I'd stick some pictures in it. So that's what I've done. So this is to show you what you might be able to do with this particular iCraft kit. Now, I did use a ribbon for my enclosure because I didn't want this flopping open, and really to put this on it was very easy. I just glued the ribbon onto the back, and to give it extra reinforcement I glued a picture over top of it. Now if you look at this picture, I made a slight mistake here. I meant this picture to go on the front cover because the pictures that are inside this were ones that were taken about a year ago when I was in Melbourne, Australia. And this particular sign said Melbourne on it, and I thought that might make a nice cover. But in my process of doing this, I got my pictures mixed up, and I ended up putting this on the back. But nevertheless, this was a happy accident, because I'm going to show you why. So we undo the ribbon, and if you look at my cover very closely, it's actually a collage of several pictures that I had taken in Melbourne. Now, what I did with these, and this was purely just spur of the moment thinking, each of my pictures when I printed them out had a white border. But to create this collage, I just cut the 4 pictures up at angles, but I left the borders around 2 sides of them, and I matched the borders up. So it looks like a continuous picture, but it's not. It's actually made up of 4 pieces. And there was a bare area in the center, so I just took another picture and cut it down and stuck it over that barrier. So I got sort of a collage without having to use any fancy software on my computer to create this, just a pair of scissors and some glue. And it took only minutes to make it, really. I added a couple of butterflies because I have some pictures of the wildlife in around Melbourne, and I just thought they kind of went with the theme. Plus, I like butterflies. I stick them on everything. I had a long time ago, well, when I came back from my trip to Australia a year or so ago, I had pre-cut out some different little name things for each place I was visiting, and I had one for Melbourne. Now, I wish this had been in a slightly different color because I don't think the black shows up that well, but it works on here. So inside, you can see the first thing that pops out is this framed picture of a kangaroo. I love kangaroos. And I just dropped that into the center of this. I added some Tim Holtz chip words around this, and I had a few more butterflies in my stash and some little flowers, and just put those on to spruce this up. Now, I didn't want to put too many 3D embellishments on the frame because when you close it, it was going to make the frame or the album be partially open. I didn't want that. On this side, here's the little mini album. And I just went through some of my pictures of Melbourne, cut them down so that they would fit in this little album. I rounded the corners to match the album corners, and that's all there was to it. So you can see, you can get quite a few little photos in this little album that's in here. And I just added some more of Tim Holtz's little words, the ones that are sticky, and just put them across, sort of words that come to mind when I think of this area of Australia. And that's all I did to it. But you can see that there's a lot of possibilities here. Now, this little album would probably make a really neat little brag book for Grandma with pictures of the grandkids in it, or as I did here, a little mini travel album. There's lots of things you could do with this, and it doesn't take long to make it, as you've seen.
and decorate it whatever you wish. So that's another iCraft kit, the Photobox album, and I hope you enjoyed this video process.
So that means for sure now I have done all the iCraft kits. It's taken a year, and I have all of those in a separate playlist that shows you all of them. I thought a week or so ago that I had already finished them all, and then lo and behold, in my stash of them, I found one more, and that was the one you just saw that I hadn't finished. But now they are all finished. So where am I going to go from there? I'm not sure. I'm working, well, I've collected stuff to get started on a grimoire. A grimoire is a book of spells. Don't worry, I'm not doing voodoo, okay, or anything like that. I'm not a warlock, a witch, a Wiccan, whatever. No, I just like the look of them. I think they're kind of interesting. Great way to use up your Halloween stash of elements. So I've been collecting these in a basket, and I have to get started on it. And, well, we'll see what happens with that. You know, I'm always torn between my projects. Like half of me is the paper crafter, the other half of me is the quilter. And right now, as you well know, quilting consumes my life. And maybe I need to find a balance between the two, because I really feel I'm neglecting my roots in paper crafting. So we'll see. So this might be a way, it'll give me, I'll do it in the same way as I've done the iCraft kits. I'll do little pieces of it throughout the vlog, and eventually it might be done. We'll see how that works out. Okay, so events in the past week. Update on my mother, she's fine. Nothing new or exciting with her. Lately she's just been, when I go over to visit her, she's just sitting in her room staring at a television that's not turned on. That I'm a little worried about, because I have noticed that she's going downhill. You know, there's nothing matter with her brain at all. Nothing. Because when I go over and I talk to her, I sort of am sneaky. I'll ask certain questions to see what kind of answers I get to test her mental faculties. And no, there's not a thing wrong with her mental faculties. It's just she has no stimulation because she doesn't leave herself open for any. What can I do? I tried way back when, you know, we sold her house and moved her into the apartment. I tried to get her involved in things, all that. But, you know, you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make it drink. And this is one of those examples. So it is her life, and I just have to accept the fact that it is her life. And she can do with it what she will. But anyways, as far as health-wise and things, she's fine. That's good. So as I said, the Giant Dahlia class is now over. I have some finishing things to do on that. I've already mentioned it. I do have one more class in this session coming up, but it doesn't start until March I think it might be in around March the 17th, I think's the date. And that's a Lone Star, and I've always wanted to do a Lone Star. It has Y seams, but I've already, you know, cut my teeth on this one for that, so I don't think that's going to be a problem. I've already picked out my fabrics and everything for that. I think it's going to be stunning, because I love the Lone Star design. So I'm looking forward to when that class starts. But as I said, it's not for another about 3 weeks with that. And that'll last for about a month. And then they'll probably have their open house, and the whole new session that moves into the summer months will start, and we'll see what we take from that. You know, I love taking the classes. Okay, so one more thing. This is just a little fun. Walter was cooking on the weekend. Actually, Walter cooks all the time. I don't anymore, because quite frankly, he's the better cook. So, and he seems to like doing it. And I did do all the cooking for, well, all the time when I was working, because I got home before he did when he was working, so I would do dinner. And I have to say that I like to cook, but I've run out of ideas for things. And, you know, if someone else will cook for you, not a bad thing. So he decided on Friday night, was it Friday night or Saturday night? Friday night, I think. He was going to make schnitzel. And so here's a little video clip of that. What you making?
Schnitzel.
Schnitzel. So this is what? Pork?
Pork.
Pork. And so what are you doing with your pork?
I'm pounding my meat.
You're pounding your meat. This is Walter pounding his meat. Whoa. Kind of a little brutal on that, aren't you? Poor pig. Jeez, how thin do you want that? Look at that. Taking out your frustrations on the meat.
Yeah, it's either that or your head.
He's such a pleasant person, not. And over here in the Instapot, he's got potatoes. And you can hear me over his pounding. In that little jar from the Dutch store is red cabbage, which I love red cabbage. Are you fond of red cabbage? Not really.
Not that much.
That's what I figured. But I like it. So a little kind of humor there, maybe a little off-color humor, whatever. But there was Walter making his schnitzel. Oh yeah, and something else Walter made on the weekend, and these were fantastic. They were pancakes, but they were Dutch pancakes. They're the way his mother used to make them. And on the weekend we went to, there's a bakery in the town next to us, and it's operated by people with Dutch heritage. And so they bring into the store a lot of Dutch items that you can't get in a usual grocery store. Plus, they're a deli, plus they are a bakery, and they have really a lot of really cool stuff. They've even started bringing in some of the stuff from the United Kingdom as well. And you know, like Cadbury chocolate from the UK is totally different than what we get here in Canada, and so I kind of stocked up on that, which is not good for this intermittent fasting diet that I'm on. But I'm trying to watch how much of it I consume. But anyways, Walter found this mix that for these pancakes, and they were what his mother used to make. So he decided, he got the mix, but he actually made the pancakes. He looked them up on the internet. They're basically the ingredients that normal pancakes have in them, except they don't have a rising agent in them, like baking powder, baking soda, whatever you put in it. So they're a little denser, but he made some of these for Saturday morning, and I guess what his mother used to do is once you've cooked them, you spread butter on them and sprinkle brown sugar and then sort of roll them up like a crepe, and you could put fruit on them. We had some, fruit and that kind of stuff. They were absolutely delicious. I love them. They're not as fluffy as regular pancakes, but it was just a really nice flavor to them. And I thought, if you left the sugar out of them, they could be something you could put ham and cheese in them, like a crepe, but a thicker crepe. They'd also make a wonderful dessert. A simple dessert too. You could get a can of apple pie filling or fresh apples, some cinnamon, roll that up in them. They'd be great. So I really, really like them, which means I'm going to have Walter make some more of them as well. And I suppose you could probably freeze them too. If you made a whole pile of them, you probably could. I've frozen pancakes before and they work. You just heat them up in your microwave toaster oven, whatever. But they were fantastic. So what can I say? Like I said, he can cook a lot better than I can. Okay, everybody's got their talents. Okay, so what's coming up? I've already mentioned the art journal class and how that affects Stephen and Walter Live this week, so I don't think there's anything else to say except that in the art journal class we're going to be experimenting with doing jelly plate transfers. Now jelly plates, I think you probably know because I have done them before, and we will be doing an art attack, and we'll actually be doing some of these techniques that I'm going to experiment with my art journal class on. And it's basically to take, something from a magazine or a book and transfer it onto a page, onto some substrate, mixed media substrate, that kind of thing. And there are all kinds of different methods for doing this kind of thing, but there's a method that the jelly plate people just put a YouTube video out, which involves a solvent ink, StazOn is what it's called. And so I experiment with that and a couple of other techniques. And I'm going to share my results of those experiments with my art journal group ladies and allow them to experiment too and see what we can get. So it's a bit messy, but it's a lot of fun. And so I'm looking forward to that class this coming weekend. Yeah, so I think that's about it for me today. I hope you have a great week. Tune in at 5 p.m. this coming Sunday for Stephen and Walter Live. Have no idea what we're going to be talking about, but we'll figure out something. And we'll see you then. Have a good one. Bye-bye.